So hello, I'm very honoured to have a couple of people who are very interesting listening to this, and maybe a couple of interesting people also on YouTube. This is a weekly happiness class I do for free on Speaker's Corner, 2 p.m. Every Sunday. And do check out the whole course at bigquestionsanswer.com. And the basis of everything I've got to say is based on psychology, just generally science, logic, and inspired by Islam. And you'll see that inspiration from Islam in a minute. So this is lesson 29, addiction. There's a reason why it's really far down the course, but I'll explain that as well later. And kind of the question I'm going to cover is alcohol a social drug? But actually, I'm going to say something really weird straight away. I'm going to just present you a couple of ideas and facts, and you make up your own idea. I'm not even going to even particularly try to convince you on that. As an individual, I do this because I want to make a difference to people, and I'll start off with this one thing, and that is, I'm going to tell you about how I get high, more high, in fact a better high, than any drug addict who gets a high through drugs. But before I want to do that, I want to rewind a little bit. I want to talk about... I'm just using alcohol as an example of a drug, but you don't have to, this is just an example, right? A lot of people don't know about the problems with alcohol. So you kind of rewind, like, why ignore alcohol at all? Just a couple of things. And I think the reason why it's important to say this, why it's not completely obvious, is that people are unaware of how much propaganda is done through Hollywood. Like, think of Hangover 1, Hangover 2, Hangover 3, right? All these crazy movies. Some of my favourite movies, they basically depict having alcohol and getting drunk as an amazing thing, right? But if you ask an expert, they'll say it's the most dangerous drug there is. More dangerous than cocaine, right? Okay, why? Well, let's just go through some numbers, right? I was going to ask somebody, like, about their personal experience, because I think people don't care about numbers so much, but I'll give you some numbers, right? Anyway, right? It's possibly one of the most expensive drugs. Expensive... effect, I can't remember how to put it, like the thing that costs the NHS, our National Health Service, if you're not from England, right, the most money through, not through just primary effects, but secondary effects. And one of the reasons, so it can cause cancer and so many illnesses, right? But also, further down, it's called a gateway drug. It basically gets you into alcohol and so many other drugs. Sorry, not alcohol, cocaine and so many other drugs, right? And if you don't care about that, then what about it's tightly linked, or I would say is a cause of the beating of wives, your domestic violence, right? Okay, and other things like sexual abuse of children. So maybe you care about some of those things, right? So that's just some reasons. And I had a friend who I didn't actually find here, who lost a friend through who lost his friend through alcohol. Another person here who lost a sister through alcohol, right? It's all very personal and it's really sad. And very interestingly, Islam is the only religion that says don't do it. Don't do it at all. And some people go, oh, you know what, that's a bit boring, you know. Oh, why not have a little bit, right? And so Islam's got three, I'll say rough, I've got three answers based on Islam, but Islam's probably got loads of other reasons, right? Answers to that, very quick answers. The way it describes alcohol, there's, in the rough translation it says abomination, right? But if you go, Arabic is a very deep language, and in that single word it's got a couple of interesting descriptions. Basically it describes it as a poison, one of them, and so people think, and people hear all this stuff, oh, a bit of alcohol is good for you, right? If the research is out now that if you have regular alcohol, even a little bit, it eats away at your brain. So I'm quite happy with having a whole brain. I hope you are too. I recommend you don't do it. But even that's not enough for me. That's not really the thing that convinces me not to have alcohol. The thing about getting a high is the thing I'm going to come to in a second, right? The other thing, and it's from that same word abomination, the way is, or was it the word for alcohol? I can't remember. I have to check it up again. I'm not total expert in Arabic, right? But the way it describes basically alcohol, wine, in the Quran is something that it's the whisperings of the devil. right? Now, I think anybody who's really got addicted to it totally understands that straight away, but I'm going to explain it a little bit really quickly. And it goes something like this. One of the reasons why people take alcohol is because they kind of feel free, they lose their inhibitions, okay? They become like a child, right? And that's actually true. Okay, but if you're a child in an adult's body, that's a really dangerous thing because you've got all the needs and wants of an adult body, right? And then if you were trying to stop yourself from any other addiction, you've lost that control because you're a child again, right? So that's another reason. But sometimes I think, why do I have to explain it after saying all these terrible things about alcohol? And the reason why I have to explain it is because we're in an individualistic society, and the number one reaction is, oh, but I like it and it's fun, right? And here's Islam's kind of major answer to this. I think it's a major, very clear answer. It says, sure, there's some good stuff about alcohol. It does actually, Quran says, yeah, there's some good stuff, but the bad things will outweigh it completely.
Only in surgical.
Oh yes.
That's fine.
Yes, we're not to. Yeah, we're not talking about consuming it like, we're talking about consuming it socially, not like a medicine.
We get high bleach somewhat in the small diluted form, but we're not going to go around drinking bleach. You're right. To treat alcohol the same as bleach, hydrogen peroxide, as in like, you know, it's something has a use, but it's not for internal, if it makes sense.
I think in the future people are going to think exactly like you. Just like in the past, people used to have cocaine and coke, and they thought that was all right.
It used to be sold in the streets here, right in London.
Right. So in the future, hopefully this thing will go away. But like in the individualistic society, we just think, oh yeah, we should have the freedom. We want freedom to do stuff. Forget responsibility. We've got the freedom. But instead of a me society that we live in right now, we should be living in a we society. It's like we care about all the damage, and I'm gonna forego my little wishes to have a bit of alcohol and whatever. But even that, I'm telling you, that's not the thing that convinces me not to have alcohol. Right, so I'm going to get to the thing I said right in the beginning. I said I can get a better high, and I said better high, even better high than any addict that is on alcohol. Alcohol, any drug actually, quite frankly, right? And you might say that's kind of, oh, that's a bit surprising. And one of the things I like to say in my intro, and I forgot that, right? That what I say is actually not publicly known, but psychologists have known this for ages. These are common knowledge for the last 50 years and so many things, but psychologists know that, but the public don't. I'm just making it available, right? Okay, so here's a couple of funny things that you know about what you should know about what are called opioids, basically drugs. They're actually defined as painkillers, right? So how do you get a high from a painkiller, right? And I'm going to put some facts together that you don't hear in the quite by psychologists because they're kind of not allowed to say this, right? But you can put it one and one together yourself, right? We'll see what happens, right? So how do you get a high from a painkiller? People take normal painkillers and still get a high from that, right? Okay, and there's another fact. I'm going to put a few facts together, right? So if you're an addict, you're also very likely to be depressed. Okay, so I'm going to put my, what I call the Matrix glasses on, where you suddenly, Matrix, if you don't know about it, you should know about it. It's a metaphor, but basically seeing reality for what it is. And here's the thing about getting inspiration from Islam. So Islam has a really amazing way of describing addiction, okay? And it basically says, and I've got all the references, do check out on the YouTube video, I'll give my kind of card out and stuff, right? So you can get all the references. It describes addicted people by a category, right? And I'll very briefly say that we're all addicted to something if we fit into this category. And it says those people who deny guidance, or I'll say it the simple way, materialists. What are materialists? They basically try to get love and happiness and all that kind of stuff through things rather than something else. Okay, there's something else I'm going to go into in a second, right? Okay, but in Islam, the way those people are described is not described as materialists, because you can want love and sex and things, and some of those things aren't exactly material, so it's a better description, right? It says all those people are chasing a mirage. Now again, I'm surprised sometimes, maybe I ask kids and they don't know the answer to what a mirage is. Do you know what a mirage is? Okay, did you know a mirage? Maybe I'm making it sound like a...
I think you see something, but you don't really see something.
100%. So Islam describes it like that. Islam says people who don't follow this light that I'm talking about, Islam describes it as a light, basically materialism, right? They are people who chase a mirage. It's like a thirsty person chasing a mirage in the desert. Okay, so what is a mirage? For those who don't know, it's an illusion of something that looks like water in the distance. But the very special quality and why it is exactly what describes an addiction is when you get it, or when you get to the place where you think that water is and you're really thirsty and you need that thing, it's not there, it disappears, because the mirage is always in the distance, it's always somewhere else. And that's what addiction is. It's always somewhere else. You can never achieve it. But then this is another amazing thing, and people don't know about addiction. It's a really weird thing. That when God says in the Quran, in describing this situation, when they get to that place where they thought their happiness is, and this could be happiness like if you buy the iPhone. You buy iPhone 10, or whatever it is we're on, right? And then you go, oh, I thought I was going to be happy when I get this £1,000 phone, and then I need to get iPhone 11 now. Do you know what I mean, right? Okay, what God teaches you, and this is out of God's kindness, I think, is that when you get it, for a moment, you realize that it's not happiness over there. Okay, God's in the Quran. It says that people find God near them at that moment in time. That awareness, the thing they're missing, they realize it's not there. But then, a moment after that, what happens is God pays them their account. What is their account? What they've earned. What have they earned by living a life of chasing something pointless? Punishment, their own self-natural punishment.
I'm a Muslim myself, but I think a lot of boxers who converted to Muslim in America, they said that it wasn't after they got the money in the championship they felt fulfilled. They go when they found God.
Yes.
They go after all the women, all the championships, everything. They said that it was when they found their I'm not trying to promote Islam or nothing. I'm not Muslim, but a lot of them said it's when they actually found God and their faith. That's when they actually felt fulfilled. Which is it's going along the lines of what you're saying. What you're saying here, I don't know if I can ask you any questions because everything you're saying to me, I agree with.
Beautiful, because you got an honest soul, basically. You don't fight the truth, and it's all I'm saying is simple things. Yeah,
and for some, it's spiritual. It's both.
Brilliant, and that's what I try to do here. People think, spirituality is just for the next life or something. It's for this life. In fact, God teaches in the Quran that you will only find happiness in the next life if you find happiness in the next. You'll only find paradise in the next life if you find paradise in this life.
I smoke weed and drink alcohol, and I think that if I was still smoking weed and drinking alcohol while I've got my problem with my face, because I've got basically a non-healing wound, I need to have surgery and all this shit. It's been like this since spring. I think I would have been such a mess if I was still addicted to weed. And I didn't really drink alcohol that much, but weed's another thing what's not good. It's something medicinal what you're not meant to use when you don't need it.
Yes.
And I think I would have been a mess. And I think when you're on these things, you can't love people right, you can't work right, you can't do things right. You think you can do things right. That's how I used to be. I used to think I would be at work thinking I can be high, and just because I can do the job right and no one can notice, I think I'm okay because I'm still functioning. But nah, it's not the right way. You're just killing yourself.
I think the problem with these things is because they're slow and people don't realise it until they got really deep into it, and then it gets really bad. Now I'm going to go to the beginning of the verse I just mentioned, okay, right to the source of the problem, okay. These are people who, the simple word in the Quran is disbelievers, but again, Arabic is such an amazing language that disbelievers sounds like just a harsh meaning, a mean word, right? Okay, but the meaning behind that is a disbeliever or a kafir means somebody who hides from the truth. They covers themselves from the light. Okay, and what is the light? God. God doesn't need anything from you. Okay, in fact, in Islam, the word for sin is just something that's bad for you. That's all.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and it is and so. And this is, as I said, this is based on psychology. So again, 50 years ago, more than that, the most famous psychologist he teaches about happiness, right? Kind of the level of Freud and Jung and whatever, Viktor Frankl. Have you anybody heard of Viktor Frankl? Right? Yeah. Okay, right? So he basically says, if you want happiness, you need a thing called meaning. right? Now, meaning, what is meaning? People can think about what meaning is. I could tell you roughly, it's about doing things for other people, right? Not being anything that doesn't directly help you, you do it for other people completely. For me, I just translate meaning as spirituality because there's no difference for me. Spirituality means doing things for other people, right? Okay, and so, yes, go on.
I was just wondering, because you said in the Quran, the alcohol is forbidden because it's bad for you.
Sure.
So if it's bad for you, then why do you have alcohol in heaven?
Huh?
Ah, yes, okay, so this... No, it's a fair question. I'll quickly go into it a little bit. So in heaven, there's a thing called... It's called alcohol, but it doesn't have the same effect. It's not...
Wait. Okay.
I don't want to go into too much because I want to finish it. I want to finish it off a little bit.
We know that it doesn't have the same effect. If it's alcohol, so
Okay, I'll quickly give an answer. In the Quran, it says anything you described in heaven, you cannot even imagine what it is. We're just giving you metaphors for what it is. So it's not really alcohol. It's a short answer.
Heaven is also not sex.
Because we don't have physical beings. But let's move on. Okay, I'm moving on. Please. Let me do me a favor. I'll answer more questions. Yeah, no, I will do a Q&A. I will do a Q&A in a minute. I'm trying to get through this really quickly, right? Okay.
I'm just trying to get educated.
No, that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for pausing your question for a minute for later, okay? Because I want to get to it in a minute. Just finish everything off really quickly. So, just to finish it off, how do I get this high that even drug addicts can't get, right? Okay, and this is, when I say this, experts know this, even people who have got out off alcohol, they suddenly realize, oh my god, I'm really creative, and they literally, I was watching a video this morning about a person who got off alcohol, and it feels like he's on drugs without drugs, right? So this is not like uncommon knowledge, it's just not common enough, which is why I'm here, right? But let's quickly break it down as to why do people take alcohol in the first place, right? Very quickly, I just thought of 3 reasons, and I think 3 very important reasons, okay? When I say very important reasons, real needs that need to be fulfilled, but they're not getting it, so they go to drugs and things like that, right? By the way, thank you. Yeah. By the way, did I explain? I'm not a professional speaker, but did I explain how it is that depressants, which are basic opioids, get you high? Did I explain that? Because I think I was explaining and then I didn't finish it off.
Explain exactly how.
Okay, very quickly. Basically, people who are addicted, right? They're basically depressed as well. There's a very strong relationship between them, and all that's happening is that when they take these pain relievers, because that's what the painkillers, okay, they stop feeling the pain in their lives, and relative to that, they feel high. That's all it is. They find and loads of people will tell you this as well. They just find a peace for a minute to think, and that peace also enables them to reflect for a little bit. What's going on? And then, so that's God's kindness, I would describe. So that's quickly that. Okay, now very quick. Sorry, I keep going back and forwards. As I say, I'm not a professional speaker, so I miss things. So, very important thing about sin, or besides it in Islam, besides it saying that it's bad for you, that's all it is, right? There's a very interesting description of sin, which is it's a need that you have, but you're fulfilling it outside the healthy boundaries. That's the definition of a sin in Islam, in the Quran, okay? And so when it comes to alcohol, why do people take alcohol? They're not taking it for no reason. There's a couple of reasons, and I'll give you a couple of that come to my mind. One is, they're trying to find a life partner, somebody to, a girlfriend, a wife, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And naturally, people are very shy and uncomfortable in that. And I'm going to give very short, simple answers for this. I think women are naturally shy for a good reason, to protect themselves from bad men, right? And so what's the alternative? So in Muslim countries, in Muslim families, what Muslim families do, they work together with each other, they learn about each other's families and find good spouses for each other, rather than do it when you're drunk. I don't think that's a good way to find your life partner, where you're going to live happily ever afterward, right? Exactly, it is a strange way. We do a lot of strange things nowadays, which is why I'm here, just to fix some of those, help fix or enlighten people a little bit about these strange things we do. Another thing that people do it for is stress, right? They're stressed, they think, okay, we're just going to relax a little bit with alcohol. Now, again, a bit of the, like, going back to the first verse about these people, basically, if you don't follow this hedonic treadmill, just constantly chasing, like chase the mirage, as I was talking about, then you won't be stressed. But if you're constantly chasing something and you're never happy, you're going to be stressed. So the simple answer is, back to Viktor Frankl, he said that you need to find meaning. And if you go into what he says, he even says God is the supra meaning. I don't know why he call it supra, but it basically means super meaning, right? So he's the ultimate meaning. Yeah, he's like, God is like the North Star that never changes, never moves. Everything else does, but that can be the meaning that never changes, right? Okay, and then finally, so yeah, just if you want to have less stress, then go towards God. But what was another one? I can't think of another one right now. But generally, I wanna go on.
Did Viktor Franklin say anything about how society would look without alcohol and drugs and all these other things that we're not supposed to have?
I don't know enough. Maybe he did, but he did say things like he was worried about Western society at the moment. He actually said one thing. He said next to the Statue of Liberty, there should be the Statue of Responsibility, because Western society is just so focused on me. I want. I want the liberty to do it, and they don't realize all of happiness comes through responsibility. But they don't like responsibility because it sounds really boring. But actually, that's where all the fun is. Like, I'm here because out of responsibility, make no money, I've got no other reason other than make a difference positively. And then where all the fun, I get to meet all sorts of interesting people.
Positive influence, yeah.
Yeah, and then I get to meet also interesting people. Like, I could be in my home, in my PJs, non-stop watching Netflix, and guess what's going to happen? I would lose because I'll get depressed, because I could be lazy, but you pay at the end of the day for doing nothing.
So in your view, in your personal view, how do you think society would benefit from not having these things like alcohol?
Heaven on earth. It would be heaven on earth, and I see it when I go to Middle East. Heaven on earth. Okay, I'll describe it. So over here, people are very kind of lonely and individualistic, and they don't meet each other. But when I go to the Middle East, you've been to the Middle East, you might agree with some of it, right? Okay. People talk to each other as their brothers and sisters. They're not so shy from each other. But another thing when I say heaven on earth, I got this picture. When I lived there, on the weekends, this is what I see, right? I'm going down the motorway or wherever, right? And I see families upon families taking any corner, green patch, whatever, sitting in circles, whole families, the girls and the boys and everybody, right? And they're just having tea together, and they're just having such an amazing time. And it's out of nothing, it's not expensive. It's the grandmas in the parks until midnight, just happy and smiling all the time. So the answer is heaven on earth. It'll be heaven on earth. And it's really simple.
We live in a society now where we've become desensitized, and now we have to understand is that it's made us not even want, children will sit in the park and they'll have alcohol to drink, and they'll leave the bottles there, or children will be inhaling the balloons, when they get the gas to their brain, and they get high off it. And we've had to become desensitized to it, but we can't even go up to the children and say, no, don't do that, you're going to kill yourself, yeah? We can't even go up to them and tell them they're going to kill themselves, because we're being groomed by by the corporations and government to be very timid and not speak out against certain things that's odd. So like, for you are going against the grain because you're speaking out against things that you shouldn't speak out against. You should be promoting it. Your government and corporations will see you as a good citizen if you're promoting it. If you say, on the weekend, it's all right, have a drink, have a vodka. And I find it what I find strange as well? You find it strange that in England, they're so predatory to go after university students with alcohol promotions. You think that you got your greatest minds being prepared to fulfill roles of high responsibility, and you're trying to find basically weak links within society where you can get them addicted to alcohol by offering them silly little prices like, look, pay £3, you get free drinks for free. You get free drinks and get another 3 for free. And you think that's very predatory nature where you're ready to pick on university students. Because I remember I read something about how university students become alcoholics through the promotion of a lot of these things in the local bars and clubs. It's very because I've lived up north as well, and it's very sad. I find it very sad, the predatory nature for them to find new people to be addicts.
Great point. So is government responsible partially for the way young people behave?
Yeah, okay, so if you see it this way, there are a couple of people who like to control everybody, and people are very easy to control if they're drunk, if they're out of control, if their families are broken, all of these things. If they're individualistic, if they're individuals, they're easier to control. But as soon as, this is where it gets dangerous for the people who want to control us, as soon as you can have a healthy relationship, and then after a healthy relationship you can have a family and have some kids, and then you learn how to have a community and you build a community, then you are dangerous, because then we can get together and vote for good people. Right now we can't vote for good people because we can't get together for anything. We can't choose good people. We can't say, you know what, let's make a community. This is how it could easily work, right? Instead of all these terrible people that we get who send us into wars after wars and spend all our money, and then we've got no money left, and then we have to pay for it. The poor people have to pay through it to tax, right? Okay. Instead of that, if we actually got together as a community and said, I know this person, I know this guy, right? He's a good guy, and we should all get together and vote for him. We could easily win. But we don't, because we don't get together, and they want us that way. They want us drunk. They want us broken families. Anything that this is a good thing to kind of, like, if you go to YouTube, by the way, is an office in the World Economic Forum, right? So they're nicely controlled, right? So anything they tell us that you're not allowed to talk about, that's a good sign that we should be talking about it, okay? Right? So for example, they say don't talk about homosexuality, don't say anything about gender relationships, whatever. That's a really nice way to break up families. I'm not hateful towards anybody, by the way, right? Okay, but if you don't have a mum and a dad, if you have two dads or two mums, it's not the same thing, right? Psychological advice, this is known, right? If you don't have a dad, for example, you're much more likely to be a criminal, a delinquent, and all these kind of things. It just happens, right? So there's so many things. So if YouTube say you can't talk about it, it's probably something worth talking about. Any thoughts? Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I really appreciate. I really value. Yes, go on.
I mean, I think mainly like alcohol is such a big problem in this society. Like, let's just say England society. I think a big part of it's kind of the representation, because it's kind of like, if you think about, you compare something like marijuana, I think it's safe to say it's much more frowned upon, like than alcohol. And I think really like the reason is representation, because if you think about like marijuana, it's associated with people who are just these juvenile delinquents, and they're just, you know, sitting at home, being lazy, doing nothing, contributing nothing. But like something like alcohol, it's kind of like, you know, you think about alcohol is kind of associated with people in high class, you know, like, you know, sort of celebrities, royalty in some cases. And then it's also like, even when people are drunk, it's like there's kind of some association with disorderly nature, but there's also like, you can have a happy drunk, you can have a funny drunk.
Like the movies, Hangover,
Yeah,
and
exactly, like the movies you were talking about. And then it's also like this kind of celebratory nature. You know, you think, oh, let's I'm having a party. You know, let's have a bit of bubbly.
You know what? That's the last thing I mentioned. I forgot to, or maybe it's how do you chill out with each other? Pete, this is the third thing that I forgot, and thank you for reminding me. Right? Okay. Like people feel they cannot relax with each other and have a really good conversation without this drug, and I think it's 100% strange. And again, I'm going to boil it down to not believing in God, right? So if you go to any religious country, we're all brothers and sisters, everybody, doesn't matter which religion, because you're taught when you're a child, you are all brothers and sisters. But what's the opposite of that? And you see in England, okay, where people are lonely despite there being so many people. Loneliness is actually the biggest killer in England. Sounds really strange, but it is, right? Okay, as soon as countries become atheistic, and this is again supported by all psychologists, okay, then people become individualistic and basically depressed, right? Okay, so if you have this religious upbringing and you feel like you're brothers and sisters, then where's the discomfort? There is no discomfort. But if you're all strangers, okay, so let me kind of go into a little bit of detail here. If you're an atheist, what that means is that it's logically, you believe in something called nihilism, where there's no meaning. right? And when there's no meaning, there's no relationships. You're just a bunch of floating atoms in the universe. You don't matter. You're not my brother. You're not my sister. You're not anything. You're just random. You're just a stranger, and more likely in a capitalistic society, you're a competitor.
Yeah.
Right?
They make a rivalry.
Yeah. So you can't feel comfortable with people, but if God is the only thing that matters, and God tells you to be kind, and God tells you that you're all brothers and sisters, how relaxed are people? When I'm in Jordan, we're in the Middle East, and I jump on a bus, they kind of don't have too many rules, right? So sometimes I'm sitting on the dashboard, talking to the driver, and then because I'm speaking in English and this is one American driver, I'm thinking, alright, you'll be translating to a complete stranger my conversation. They want to know what I'm talking about. They don't ask permission. Can I please get involved in? We're all brothers and sisters. That kind of thing. So thank you for that comment. It just reminded me of that really important thing. Thank you.
I enjoyed that.
I appreciate.
Before you go,
Oh yes.
Quickly, what are the long-term implications for the individual in terms of his health and the cost to society?
Alright, I don't know the numbers, but I'll tell you the kind of cost. Like, 70% of the people who go to accident and emergency, that's kind of the emergency stuff in UK hospitals, are from drunks, alcoholics. They're pretty expensive, right? Cancer, so many things. Cancer is obviously serious, but it's so serious that you have to get so many drugs. The terminal kind of diseases are the ones that cost the most because of, I don't know how hospitals work, but there's massive costs on top of costs. But what about the human cost? I think that's the most important. If you abuse a child sexually, they're distraught for life. They do all sorts of damage to themselves their whole lives. So for me, that's kind of the most important thing. But there's so much in terms of financial cost as well. Thank you. I want to thank you, one more person. You, I really appreciate it. I love it. Can we stick your face on it for a second? Can we? Thank you. This is Simon. Such a lovely friend. Can I just say a few words, right? He's deleted his YouTube channel because he doesn't like, it's kind of the horrible shouting, screaming stuff. So you don't even go look there. Right? Basically, what it is. Yeah, that's an Arabic word of. What does that mean roughly? It means kind of like. What does it mean? You're an Arab.
Bad energy.
Right, what was the word?
Fitna.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Bad energy.
Bad energy, right?
Negative energy.
So he comes every week, a long way, just to record my shows, my little happiness classes.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
I love doing it.
A new Muslim. I kind of new Muslim. I always say new Muslim. But
Oh, 2012.
2012, Irishman, and knows a lot about this subject, alcoholic, because all the Irish do. It's a cultural thing. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing. We need to stop this video because people don't watch long videos. So if you wouldn't mind, yeah, go on.